Hello and welcome to another D&D Stories. I am your host, TheWriter, and this is the show where we sit here and I regale you with all the tabletop gaming stories and remember when something cool happened. So we return once more to the campaign of Enter the Labyrinth, in which our now 6-person strong party are trying to remove the cornerstones of the endless labyrinth to make it collapse and make their escape. So, when we last left off, they had found themselves near the end of the quote-unquote finish line dungeon, and they found themselves in a great hall filled with columns and several different ways to go. So, Furious Ming picks a door, and they find a vault. After our rogue, I'm just going to call him Darius, because I forget X number of rogues have already died. I'm just going to call him Darius. Darius picks the lock, a rather extraordinary lock that needs to be twisted back and forth, and he needs his thieves' tools, and it's got a combination on it, and all kinds of different things that they have to slowly deduce to get it open. And inside the vault is a verifiable treasure trove of magic items. There's big double-handed axes. There's punching knuckles for Ming to pick up. There's a knife of slitting for our rogue. There's spell books for the wizard. Liner gets like a cute little set of dragon armor, like horse barding almost, but for dragons to put on. And just all kinds of great stuff that seems pretty tailor-made for their party. And then after a while, they kind of look at each other and go, yeah, this is all the stuff that we would really want if we were going to go magic item shopping. And then they look at each other again and they go, I wonder if this was our stuff in the previous time loops. And this sense of dread goes over them. So the labyrinth starts. They go for a while, they die, their stuff got deposited into this room. The labyrinth restarts, they go for a while, they die, another round of magic items and stuff goes into this room, and however many loops that they've gone through and made it this far, which maybe not very many since this room is so small, but all the stuff that they decked themselves out with in the past is in this room. So it's a verifiable, just complete upgrade for everybody. In the past, apparently, Liner bought himself a set of armor, and in the past, Taurus had a big double-handed axe with the keen enchantment on it, which makes it easier for him to land a critical hit. And at one point, apparently, Furious Ming had magic rings and then picked up a pair of silver punching knuckles and stuff like that. So this was all really particular stuff because it probably used to belong to them. So they outfit themselves and they're like, well, this is probably the best we've ever been geared out because we've got 5 or 6 time loops worth of cool toys to play with now. And but it is a little sombering that they have apparently been here this number of times and failed every single time. But they managed to break into the vaults and get all of their stuff from all their previous time loops back, so they might stand a chance this time. Let's see. They go, I'm checking my notes again. This campaign had so many weird details in it, I had to write it all down. They go on through another set of doorways, and they find themselves in a giant room of columns with 6 doors, one with each one of their names on it. So they are being challenged to split up and go towards their intended doors, and of course they do. Let's split up, gang! So Zealous goes into his door, and he is confronted with the person that put him on death row, a former king whom he had struck with the phantasmal killer spell and assassinated, and that was what got him thrown in shackles and then thrown into the labyrinth. So Zealous, our instant death spell wizard, was an assassin of kings, 2 years before that video game came out. But he was, feeling like a scolded child. Meanwhile, Darius was being slapped around by a maid whom he had taken advantage of in her own kitchen in a mansion in a faraway place. That it had been proven that he'd done the dirty deed, so he'd been thrown into the labyrinth as well, since rape and murder are treated much the same in terms of punishment. They throw you right into the mouth of the labyrinth. Liner, our dragon healer, who is supposed to be lawful good and maybe not so much anymore now that he's discovered his narcissistic side, was confronted by the Pale Man, who thought he would explain to Liner a little more about why he was in the labyrinth, because apparently Bela Lugosi had screwed with Liner's memories before he'd been thrown in. All this time, the player who created Liner was not into creating backstories. He just wanted to play as a cool dragon cleric, and that was the end of that. So I got to make up his backstory and say he just forgot it. The Pale Man told him that Liner came into the labyrinth on purpose, that he was so narcissistic, so arrogant, that he thought that he would be the first one to go into the labyrinth, defeat all of its challenges, and emerge out victorious and become rich and famous for having done so among dragons, among clerics, among people that watched the labyrinth as entertainment, that he would be the first contestant to make it out alive. And that, what an ego does it take to think that you, child, dragon the size of a corgi, however young you are, that you think you can come out of this impossible task unscathed. What arrogance, what hubris is it that makes you think you can go through this? Meanwhile, Ming, in behind his own door, is trading barbs with his dojo master, whom, if you remember, Ming used a terrible magic scroll to seal him in a crystal and take over his dojo before he was set upon by mutiny and thrown into the labyrinth himself for his betrayal. And Taurus, of course, relives the day that he was captured by Bela Lugosi and his cohorts before he was thrown into the labyrinth, and he was stabbed in the chest with a special spear that would fell him in one blow. And of course, everybody comes out the other side of their. I didn't have Lilia. I don't have any record of what Lilia saw. I assume she was just with Taurus because they were partners. But they all kind of emerge out into the next room at about the same time, feeling like scolded children. This is why you're in here, you fucking douchebags. Don't forget it. But Taurus tells them that he wasn't up against Heidi, why did you murder me, why did you rape me, etc., etc. He relived the entire day that he was captured by Bela Lugosi and told them all about this magic spear that they had used to get him, a spear that could never miss. And they said, well, what happened to the spear? And he goes, I don't know. I was felled by it, and when I woke up, I was in the labyrinth. And of course, Ming reaches over and kind of paws at the fur on his chest, and there's something sticking out of the skin. And he goes, how did you miss this? And they kind of gather around, and they part his fur back and forth. There's a huge scar on his chest, like he got hit right in the lung. But beneath the skin, there is still an object in his body. It might be the spearhead from the spear that never misses, that felled him in one hit. And they go, we've got to get that. And Taurus is like, what? No. And Ming's like, too late, we're going to get it. Boom, stunning fist. And they knock Taurus out. And he's like, and he lays on the ground. And they're like, if he's got some kind of super weapon embedded into his body, we've got to try and retrieve it. So they lay Taurus out on all the bedrolls. It's like they're going to do surgery. So Darius comes up with his dagger of slitting, and I'm behind the DM screen like, goddamn, they're just going to kill him. He's not going to wake up again, so that they can get this weapon out of his body. And Darius has his dagger of slitting, and he makes an incision and rolls a 20. And I was like, okay, I guess he doesn't even bleed. You've cut through all the scar tissue, which isn't how scar tissue works, but shut up. And they kind of flay him open a little bit, and they grab some tongs from Darius's thieves' tools, and they extract the head of this spear. And then Liner jumps forward before he starts gushing with blood. Heal critical wound, and it seals back up again. And they've got this spearhead, and they clean it off, and they scrub it, and they sharpen it a little bit with some whetstones that they had bought. And they pick it up, and they're like, okay, well, we've still got that, we've got like a regular throwing spear from just crap that they'd picked up before. And so they take apart that spear, and they put this magic spearhead on. And I go, okay, you've recovered the weapon that felled Taurus when Bela Lugosi was hunting him, the Grand Keen Long Spear of True Striking. And they go, holy crap, what does all that mean? And I go, well, keen means that it's more likely to score a critical hit. That's how they felled him in one attack. And True Striking means that whenever you roll to attack with it, you get plus 20 to it. And they go, holy shit, True Striking, I'm not even sure if that's like an enchantment you can put on, because True Strike is usually just a spell. But it's like, you put True Strike on a bow and arrow, and like the next arrow gets plus 20. I'm not sure if you can permanently imbue True Strike on something. I'm sure somebody will tell me in the comments, but the Grand Keen Long Spear of True Striking, and they were like, holy crap. So whatever we roll plus 20, and then it does the damage, and it's more likely to do a critical strike. And then they're like, yep. And they're like, well, I guess we'll pass that to Lilia, since she's like the Beastmaster that was working with a long pole arm to begin with. And, they're going to rest for the night because they've flayed their friend alive to retrieve a magic item from his body. So they stop for the night. They unroll all their bedrolls, and they clean up the blood, and, they leave food next to Taurus so he doesn't decide to get up and kick all their asses for doing this to him. And in the dead of night, Darius decides that he's going to try for Lilia. Basically try to get into her pants. And I go, why? You've already died like 4 times. You're really going to go for this? He's like, yeah, I'm a rogue. I've got all these points in freaking sneak and move silently and all this. And I was like, all right. So he gets up in the middle of the night because it's like his turn to do the watch. And it's like he sneaks past his party, and he sneaks past the unconscious Taurus. And I was like, you think you're going to fuck her and she's not going to wake up? How are you? And I don't know what to make of this guy. Like I said, I'm just calling him Tom because I don't want to give away his stupid name. But he goes for Lilia, and of course she wakes up and screams bloody murder. Taurus wakes up, grabs his brand new keen double-handed axe, and freaking cleaves into Darius, like setting him down to like -9. He's almost dead. He's almost cut in fucking half, laying on the ground, just bleeding out in all directions. And, nobody's got a shred of sympathy for him. It's his own damn fault. And the second character of his that's freaking tried to rape someone. But Taurus cleaves him almost in half. And they decide that, they've got only like a couple of minutes to decide if they want to keep him alive or not. And they go, well, we are about to go up against whatever Ouroboros is. We should probably keep him alive, but we're going to let Lilia decide what his punishment is going to be. So Lilia takes his best weapon, which was the the vampiric longsword. The Darius and all the other rogues inherited that vampiric longsword one after another. But Lilia took it from him as punishment. And they threw him in chains and said, you know what, we're just going to leave you there. And, you know, they threw a healing spell on him to put him at 1 hit point so he would stay his ass over in the corner. And, you know, the amount of awkward at this table is rising and rising, because I'm of the school of thought that you can really project yourself when you're playing a D&D character. Of course, you know, I brought the hornball bard to the table, but what am I judging for? But, you know, if you're, like, actively trying to rape NPCs and, like, kill and torture and do all these atrocities, I mean, I get it. It's an evil campaign, but there are certain lines in storytelling and different things like that that you're going to turn everybody against you, because how much of your character is actually you when you're playing D&D? So it calls into question some people's sense of morality. Let's see. So they sleep for the night, they heal Darius the rest of the way back up, and, you know, last chance or we'll just kill you like the other rogues died. And, you know, there's not a lot of people left in our battle group anyway, so you probably won't come back after this death, you know, soon dead / Vince / Dalton / Darius / whatever rogue you are now. The guy's died so many times, like, he's stopped caring, and the party has stopped trying to care for him. So that was his legacy in this campaign, was just dying every other freaking session. They go into the next room. These rooms just seem to be uniform at this point. Big, sweeping, football field-sized rooms with columns on either side. And they run into the Pale Man, Pinhead, or the Cenobite, or whatever you want to call him. And as they all emerge into the room and the doors slam behind them, sealing themselves closed from the outside room, the Pale Man transforms himself into an adult Tartarian dragon, the Ouroboros. Now, for those of you that don't know your Greek lore, Tartarus is the Greek and Roman version of the portion of the underworld where you go if you were a bad person, basically hell, or a prison. So a Tartarian dragon hails from the prison dimension where evil souls and wretched people are kept for all of eternity. They're black and gaunt like meth users. Their skin is stretched over their bones. They're covered with black scales and, you know, no muscle, but they're so powerful. Their breath weapon is a crushing despair gas that lowers your stats all out. It's covered with fucking spikes and it drools acid, and it's this badass motherfucker from another dimension that delights in keeping tormented souls inside of their prisons. So perfect place for it to hang out was this Labyrinth place where they were keeping people that were on death row. So, of course, he dances in and out of being the Pale Man to help or hinder people based on his own amusements. But now they've come far enough, and it's time for them to die. So this big, giant motherfucker comes out, just dragging giant, tattered wings, spikes all over him. It's like, roll initiative. And I've got this big, long boss fight planned out where he's going to, like, trap them in, like, hold person spells like a prison, or spray gas over the monk so he can't do as much damage with his flurry of blows and stuff like that. Who wins the initiative? Zealous the Wizard. What does Zealous the Wizard do? Finger of Death! Falls over and dies. God damn it, Zealous. Whole table erupts into laughter. Because at the time, I was a dice fall where they may kind of DM, so Zealous had been honing his character with various feats and abilities to make his spells harder to resist, so it would be that much harder to resist Finger of Death, Phantasmal Killer, Gaze, all of his instant kill spells. So he one-shot killed the Tartarian dragon, and, it got to the point, I think, where the rest of the party's like, well, we don't even need to play. Zealous is just going to kill everything in one hit. There's people folding their arms and fucking, like just face-palming at this point. Like, yeah, here's this cool, giant, badass dragon battle that's going to go, 6-on-1. But, you guys are level 14, but he's, like, from another dimension where he keeps prisoners of the damned and stuff like that. So this big, epic battle was going to happen. Finger of death. Blah. Well, that was anticlimactic. Moving on. God damn it, Zealous. And it's far be it from me to punish my players for being too clever or for building a character that can instant kill things, especially large things, to preserve themselves or to preserve their resources. But like Zealous had it honed to a science where the game was basically over because he would just one-shot kill everything. And you might say, oh, well, T, just make it so they're immune to instant death spells. It's like, well, again, that was during my strict phase of, dice fall where they may, and, he's got to roll this resist and that resist. Like, instant death spells are not easy. They usually come with several saving throws. But Dragon did not do well enough to get above them all, so pitched over and died. Good job, Zealous. You won the campaign. Good job. You've perfected the instant death curse that I'm sure it's a lot of fun for everybody else to see you win the initiative and then just instantly kill the boss. I'm sure they're just having a blast. I was starting to get kind of pissy by this point that Zealous was just instantly killing everything. But that's what he built his character to do. So hey, more power to him. It's not entirely unclever. It's just really douchey, and it keeps everybody else from playing. But that's just my opinion. So, what they didn't realize after they had one-shot killed the Tartarian dragon was that there was still a corpse afterward. And what happens when the Labyrinth produces a number of corpses or a great big corpse? The tidy monster becomes very, very interested in that location, and being that he goes through walls, showed up in this great big room to absorb the body of the Tartarian dragon and eat it and clean the room. Oh yeah. So in order to do this, it had to take on a physical form. So it's like It from Stephen King. Every X amount of time it feeds, and in order to feed, it has to take on a physical form to eat the physical meal of this dead dragon's corpse and absorb its body, absorb its power, whatever you want to call that. But when it manifested, it's no longer a disembodied voice with an invisible, amorphous body. It emerges as a corpse gatherer. And a bunch of you in the last episode, you guys kept asking me, what is the tidy monster? Because, there's no such thing as a tidy monster in the bestiaries. It, by definition, was a corpse gatherer. Now, what is a corpse gatherer? It is a living, walking graveyard. So it's, if you took a bunch of graves with their bodies, their tombstones, the dirt that surrounds, and all the gnarled trees and the overgrown grass, and you mushed it all together, and you gave it arms, and you gave it legs, and you, splatted some blobs on the front of it to act as eyes, and then you wound it up and sent it on its way, that's a corpse gatherer. So whenever you hit it, it sprays zombies into the battlefield, and whenever it tries to absorb you like an ooze, it's amorphous. It usually has arms and legs, and it walks. But it's basically a graveyard golem. It's just all the crap you would find in a graveyard, all the nasty lichen and moss and bodies and coffins and gravestones and stuff like that. Like the tips of its fingers were gravestones, and the front of its belly was filled with zombies that were flailing out and trying to get to you. A golem made of graveyard mass, I guess is what it was. And that's why the Labyrinth is so clean, is because it's just adding all these people, all these corpses to its mass, and it's become freaking huge. So, checking my notes again. They have to fight the tidy monster or the corpse gatherer, and Furious Ming kind of takes the point on this, because Taurus can do a whole bunch of damage, but every time he hits it, it sprays zombies in all directions. So Ming's over there like being a punch turret. It's like, I'm going to throw myself into the middle of all these zombies. Punch, 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 punch. You know, it's not that they're powerful, it's that there's so many of them. So, you know, while Zealous is trying his phantasmal killer and his finger of death, which don't work because it's a golem, I'm pretty sure. It doesn't have a will of its own. But don't quote me on that. That was 8 years ago. But it didn't work on the corpse gatherer. He only tries it once, and then if it doesn't work, he'll do other things. But they're throwing lightning bolts at it. It's shooting zombies all over the place. They're trying to do crowd control. You know, Lilia's stabbing with her new grand, keen, long spear of true striking. They're just trying to keep the crowd under control because it just keeps spraying undead all over the place anytime they hit it. And they finally just like pulverize it into the ground until it runs out of zombies. They've broken most of the tombstones, and then finally the force of will that is holding it together dissipates, and it just collapses into a great hill of earth and graves and body parts. They go, yeah, we got the Ouroboros and the tidy monster in one go. All right. All that's left is Heidi and question mark. And they go, well, how are we going to find Heidi? Was that not Heidi we found in the coffin? And Taurus goes, no more so than that was Heidi I was raping in the stocks. You know, she manifests all throughout the Labyrinth, but it's never actually her. She could be anywhere. She might be buried under a random floor stone in the far reaches, miles away in a random room in the Labyrinth. We have no idea. And, you know, Furious Ming strokes his chin for a while, and he goes, I know somebody who might know. And Liner looks up at him and goes, Bela Lugosi won't tell us where his wife is buried so we can destroy her body. He goes, no, but there is one other who knows everything about the Labyrinth. And Taurus kind of folds his arms and goes, I don't know. And he goes, not you, the librarian. Everybody goes, oh. So they grab the puzzle box and they work the puzzle box, focusing into, you know, everybody join hands, focus on the library. We're going to use the puzzle box as a teleportation, you know, open the wall and the library will be there because it focuses on hot spots. And they open up the wall and the library is just beyond, and they go into the library. They're in a completely freaking different dimension now. They were in the Tomb of Horrors, which was outside the Labyrinth. Now they've gone back to the Labyrinth, to a particular part of the Labyrinth. They're starting to kind of understand how freaking arbitrary this entire place is. Like, there's no reason to map this place. It's just the hot spots that you've been to before that matter. But they emerge in front of the library, and they go, okay, we'll go in and ask the librarian where Heidi is, because the librarian knows everything about the Labyrinth, right? And they go, yeah, that's what Bela Lugosi told us. We just hope he wasn't lying. So they all go in, and they ask the librarian, who, again, is a disembodied voice. And they go, librarian, where is Heidi? And the voice tells them, she is above. And they go, well, yes, that's very nice. She went to heaven. Where's her body? And he goes, she is above. And they're like, and, you know, we look up into the ceiling, and sure enough, lighting a great portion of the library is a massive crystalline chandelier. And inside, in a coffin of crystalline glass, is Heidi's preserved body. Like Sleeping Beauty style. She's not even rotting or anything. That is her true body. It's not out there, you know, being molested by Taurus. It's not over there, you know, mummified in a room. It's not a ghost giving you hints. Those were all constructs of the Labyrinth, just there to fuck with you. That's her real body up in that chandelier. And they go, oh, okay. Can we get the chandelier down? Is it like attached by a rope or anything? And they go, no, not for something that big. It's attached by a mighty chain, and there's no real like mechanism to get it down. And they ask the librarian, say, how do we get the chandelier down? And the librarian warns them that should they tamper with the chandelier, that they will be sanitized, that the library will have to be sanitized. And, you know, when a disembodied voice uses the word sanitized to refer to a whole building, it's not usually a good thing. So they push open the double doors that are leading out back into the labyrinth, and they go, okay, Zealous, use your wand of lightning bolt and just blast it down. It's crystal. You know, it's not going to stand up to anything, and we'll just be outside the building. And he goes, okay. So they throw open the doors. They all go outside. Zealous stands right in the threshold, and he pulls out his wand. It's like, I'm a charge in my lightning bolt. You know, go ahead and throw it. I'm a fire in my lightning bolt. Go on. Here goes my lightning bolt. Fire the damn lightning bolt. Lightning bolt! And he shoots the lightning bolt up into the chain, and it blasts apart, sending the chandelier careening towards the ground. Everybody take cover! And they throw themselves out onto the stones outside the library, and the chandelier crashes into the ground like 1,000 million billion pieces of crystal and glass, destroying the body in the process and whatever was protecting it. And then the librarian goes berserk, and the entire library, you know, light shoots out of all the windows, out of the doorway, out of the belfry from the very top. And it incinerates everything inside. You know, Zealous is blinded. He throws himself back. Oh, my eyes. And you know, when the light is gone, they look inside and they see that the library is gone. That it's just a hollow shell of a building. All the shelves, all the books, the desks, the chandelier, you know, it was expunged from the sanitation protocol because somebody tampered with the most valuable thing in the library, Heidi's body. So it attempted to kill them all, but they were outside the building, so they were safe. Zealous, on the other hand, was blinded for about 20 or 30 minutes from looking directly into it, but he was okay after a while. So Heidi's body was successfully destroyed. That's 3 of the 4 cornerstones, one after another. So there is one thing holding the labyrinth together. And by then, the party decided, you know what, it's probably Bela Lugosi, because it can't be anything else. If Taurus, you know, dies every other cycle, that would cause the labyrinth to at least partially unravel. You know, the Pale Man was clearly an outside entity, you know, and all the rest just don't match up. It has to be Bela Lugosi. So they sit for a while, and they decide, you know, they make camp. They've got all their commodities from doing their shopping. They sit and they bathe, and they do all the things that they want to do for regular upkeep, and they chug a few potions, and they go, okay, how are we going to do this? I mean, he's basically a super-powered game show host, and, you know, we can't really just grab the fucker and snap his neck, you know. And they go, well, we've got these fate coins, you know, one side is the shopping cart and the other side is his face, so at the very least we can summon him to us. But you know, how do we deal with him? He's probably protected, you know, from whatever kind of damage, because otherwise he wouldn't be in here among us if we could just turn and shoot him in the face with a fireball. And, you know, that might ruin his day. So he's probably, at the very least, immune to magic and physical attacks. Otherwise, he wouldn't be in here taunting us and making deals and running arena matches and things like that. And Liner kind of looks up after a moment. He's snacking on his dragon treats that he bought from the store. And he goes, well, what about the Sphere of Annihilation? and the whole table goes silent, and the party goes silent, and Lilia, who's sharpening her brand new mega spear, stops for a moment, and they all look over at Liner at the simple brilliance of it all. All they have to do, they realize, is go to the finish line dungeon, the very beginning of the finish line dungeon, get through the first hallway, summon Bela Lugosi, and then just shove him into the sphere of annihilation. That's not even an attack. It's just, even if he doesn't take any damage from being shoved, he's still a solid object. They could just shove him into the gargoyle's mouth, and he will be no more. And the labyrinth will come undone. And they go, that's just awesome enough to work. Let's do it. Yeah. So, they decide to stay the night in front of what's left of the library. And they make camp. They go off into their various corners to kind of like, this is your last night on Earth kind of preparation. So Ming is like sharpening the brunt of his silver punching stuff, and Lilia's sharpening her new spear. And Liner's making adjustments to his dragon armor, and Darius is like doing knife tricks, trying to figure out what's the best way to do like a full attack to do the most damage if he's standing from this angle or that angle. And finally they set up watch. And Taurus and Lilia decide to take the first watch for the greater portion of the evening, so that the rest of the party, you know, the main characters, can get the most rest and recover their spells and their abilities and all that. So they put the party inside the remains of the library. They close the doors. You know, the windows are high up enough, nobody's going to climb into those without them noticing. So they stand out on the dais, and they're just kind of doing guard duty. So the party pretty much goes to sleep. And Lilia and Taurus have a conversation, which only Darius hears because he's the closest to the door. And it's sort of an awkward romance because, you know, Taurus loved Lilia while they were out being sellswords. They were obviously lovers at one point. They didn't really get married or anything like that, but they had done the same job together for so long. They'd grown to rely on each other. They'd had sex a few times. There was a flame of affection between them that only Taurus remembered. And, you know, Lilia was asking him questions about their past. You know, how did we get into that job? How did we, you know, what kind of people were we before all this? Because, you know, Bela Lugosi had wiped her memories. And it didn't take long for clothes to start coming off. Because, you know, this is going to be over or we're going to be dead and doing this again later. Why not a pity fuck, you know? That's basically what it was. So, Taurus takes her around the corner of the library itself, and they lay out the bedrolls, and they have sex outside the library while the rest of the party is sleeping. And Darius, of course, peeks on them outside the door, outside around the corner, because you would too. And I say, hey, you know, it's Beastmaster and Minotaur. It's exactly what it sounds like. And I go, isn't he? And Darius goes, isn't he too big for her? And I goes, well, if you're used to something that size, who knows? And so Darius watches them for a while before going back, you know, whacking it and going to sleep, jealous, because he tried to get into Lilia's pants and failed. But Taurus and Lilia's relationship was probably not a healthy one. I mean, they killed people together and traveled together, and that was about it. So it may have been circumstance versus convenience, since, you know, love knows no bounds of race, especially among magical creatures. So that happened. Let's see, what happens next? Yes, they get up the next day, some more rested than others, and they decide, okay, today's the day. Today's our final battle. You know, use your whetstones, use your buff potions. etc., etc., in case it doesn't work, in case, we have to get into a direct fight with Bela Lugosi. We have no idea what his abilities are. I mean, clearly, he is a master arcanist. He can create all this and maintain it for vast periods of time. So his wellspring of inner magic, or whatever you want to call that, is clearly very vast, but maybe he's using most of it to maintain the labyrinth because he is one of the cornerstones. He has to be. And right now, he's the last one standing. So if we take him out, there goes the labyrinth. There goes the time loops. There goes everything else that has caused us so much misery. And, Taurus so much more than that, because he's the only one who remembers it all. And so, if you've got any mega cool items you've been saving or hoarding, super potions or whatever, now's the time to bring them out, because this will be our final battle. And so, they sit down, Liner starts working the puzzle box, they open the wall to reveal the finish line dungeon, the Tomb of Horrors, and they go into the initial hallway, and Darius starts, securing all the pit traps. They throw a bar over the door so the gargoyle won't jump out at them and join the melee if there is one. They throw caltrops in one corner in case they have to corner Bela Lugosi and keep him from running. They double check that the Sphere of Annihilation is still there. They throw a couple of things in just to make sure. They go, Liner, stay back. Shut up. And they check. Their trap is set. They've set Taurus at the very front of the hallway so Bela Lugosi can't escape. And they go, okay, now's the time. So they take out their fate coin and they're getting ready to toss it and summon Bela Lugosi. And I go, as you're getting ready to do that, you notice that there's a slot next to the gargoyle's head that's inlaid in the wall. And they go, oh, damn it. Did we not see that before? And I go, you didn't search it. You just kind of went to it and climbed into the mouth, Liner. You didn't really see all the details that were there. And they go, okay, we've got a spare. Why not? So they put the fate coin in, and the gargoyle's head containing the Sphere of Annihilation ascends into the ceiling, revealing a further passage. And they go, shit, there went our plan. And they go, all right, well, we'll gather up again. And they go down a really long hallway, and they emerge into the arena. And they go, God damn it, this is all just lined up to fuck with us, isn't it? And I go, well, it's the same arena where you fought the Necromancer, and it's the same arena where you fought Lilia and Rhymefang. And now, who should be standing there in the center waiting for you? Bela Lugosi. And they emerge out into the arena, and the passage disappears behind them. The seats are packed, full of all kinds of different people. Yeah, this is going to be so awesome. Bela Lugosi stepping into the arena. Oh my God, this never happens. Yeah, this is going to be great. Where's my fucking popcorn? Butt scratcher! Butt scratcher! And all that kind of stuff. This is the pure entertainment of the masses that's going on there. So our 6 party members emerge. They stand shoulder to shoulder like the X-Men. A minotaur, a half-elven woman, a monk, a dragon. It's just the weirdest motley crew you've ever seen in your life, versus one guy. The one guy who is behind all these machinations, behind all this misery and punishment and death. And he goes, you guys don't make it this far very often. Good job. And I was good job, your face. We're going to fucking destroy you. It's 6-on-1. Who the fuck are you kidding? And they pull their weapons, and Zealous is ready. He's so ready with his fucking Finger of Death spell. Like he's going to one-shot Bela Lugosi, and he knows it. So I go, all right, roll initiative. And so we roll it. And that is probably the first time in the whole campaign that I cheated on the initiative. I said, Bela Lugosi goes first. And to take his turn, he decides to summon some allies. He summons a corpse gatherer, a zombie Tartarian dragon, and 5 undead rogues to aid him. and they go, oh shit, it's everything we ever were afraid of. And so they've got a handful of rogues. They've got the Corpse Gatherer, the tidy monster that they just killed, and the Tartarian dragon, which has been raised from the dead, and Bela Lugosi. So there's, 4 or 5 rogues, 6 party members, 3 bosses. So 14 people on this battlefield. It's going to be pandemonium, and the audience is going to love it. So pardon me as I go through my notes trying to describe this epic battle of 5 or 6 bosses all going at once. But if I remember correctly, our characters were cresting like level 14, level 15. So if it had been 6-on-1, it wouldn't have been a very good battle. So they could legitimately take all of this stuff now and get a good challenge from it rather than just stomping Bela Lugosi into the ground. So he summoned out all the bosses that they'd beaten before. So I guess we'll just rapid string through my notes to kind of describe the battle as it went. It was Zealous and Taurus against the Tidy Monster, Ming and Liner against Bela Lugosi, Darius versus the Rogues, and Lilia kind of migrated from one battle to the next. But again, it was 14 entities in a relatively large like arena space, so it was hard to tell who was shooting at who and who was fighting what. But Liner starts the battle by throwing down an obscuring mist because the Tartarian dragon could just bite them in half. It's big enough to do so. So he throws the obscuring mist over the dragon to give them an edge. So Lilia charges in to do battle with the Tidy Monster, which is not the best idea holding a piercing weapon because it's a golem and, it's soft as it is. So she's just poking holes in a big dirt monster, and it turns and it kills her straight away. Like 3 or 4 rounds in, she goes down. Ming, in return, comes in, runs up the side of the Tidy Monster like the fucking Matrix, somersaults over its head, and does flurry of blows into the back of its neck, snapping its head off and exploding it back down into all of its base parts. So zombies go everywhere, all across the arena. Taurus rages out over Lilia's death because they're lovers, of course he does, and he tears into the dragon, who is between himself and the rest of this battle, because Bela Lugosi's on the other side. So he charges and gores straight into this dragon, swinging his axe back and forth. Liner and Zealous are focus firing Bela Lugosi with lightning bolts, because Liner can breathe lightning, and Zealous has the ring of lightning bolt. Now Ming tries to sneak up behind Bela Lugosi and punch him a whole bunch, but Bela Lugosi is using Loyal Guardian. And Loyal Guardian pretty much prevents any role-based attacks, so physical attacks for the most part. So he is almost immune to physical damage at this point. So Liner and Zealous are going in with the lightning bolts, trying to focus him down. So there's arced lightning and fireballs going back and forth while these giant monsters are fighting these people. Taurus goes down fighting the Tartarian dragon, and Ming ducks into the mist to aid him with potions. And the only reason that the Tartarian dragon doesn't bite Ming in half is because of the mist. I think it gives like a 20% chance or some percentile chance to miss no matter what you roll. So the mist obscures him, and he pops a serious potion back into Taurus, who gets up right away and hefts his axe back into the fray. Liner and Zealous bring down Bela Lugosi with their lightning after the dragon goes down, because Taurus is just swinging with this great big axe that does critical damage more often than normal. Plus he's got 10 levels of fighter, so he's swinging like 6 times or however many it is to cut this dragon's head off and send it back to the dead where it belongs. And meanwhile, in the background, Darius and the rogues are tangling with each other. And while Darius took down 2 of the rogues, there were like 4 or 5 of them. So he is eventually overwhelmed and killed. And Liner kind of turns and like sprays lightning breath at them to take them out the rest of the way because they were low level, low level, mid level from when he had died throughout the campaign. I kept all of his character sheets and used them for this fight, so not all of them were like level 14 super rogues to make this happen. So Liner took them down the rest of the way. So we have suffered 2 party deaths to take out everybody except for Bela Lugosi, and Bela Lugosi like coughs out the blood because he's been electrocuted like 11 times. And Taurus is the one who is nearest to Bela Lugosi, and the mist kind of goes out to reveal the bodies of Lilia and Darius and the rogues and the Tidy Monster and the Tartarian Dragon. There's just blood and gore everywhere. And Taurus is just like snorting steam. He's gonna just grab this guy by the shoulder and rip his fucking head off. And Bela Lugosi, before he can be slain, offers Taurus a small amulet with an egg timer on it, basically a time turner from Harry Potter. You know, you've never gotten this far, Taurus. And you know, some blood goes down the side of his face. But you didn't save her. And they both look over to one side where Lilia, you know, lays dead from her wounds from the Tidy Monster. So her face is all bloodied and bruised over, and you know the brain damage was just too much. So she's got a little bit of blood going out the side of her mouth, but all the wounds are on the inside. So Bela Lugosi offers Taurus to restart the labyrinth again, to see if he can get this far and come out with Lilia alive. And everybody else is too far away. They're like, no, don't do it. You know, Taurus is reaching for the amulet because, you know, it's the love of his life. It's the woman that he went into the labyrinth with. You know, he's willing. You know, he's done this so many times now. What's to say that he couldn't repeat this success? So he's like, no, Taurus, don't do it. And, you know, Zealous whips out the wand of lightning bolt, and he goes, lightning bolt! And he throws the lightning bolt. It's either going to hit Bela Lugosi, the amulet, or Taurus. And the lightning arcs all the way across the arena, because you can shoot lightning pretty damn far when you've put the right skills into it. And it blasts apart the amulet. And Ming gets there just in time to just kind of headbutt Taurus out of the way because he's a monk. But the amulet has been destroyed. So, the Bela Lugosi's Loyal Guardian spell runs out just as the battle kind of comes to an end, and Liner jumps onto his face like an angry, you know, flying squirrel and just rips his face apart with his little dragon claws, sending eyeballs and gore and flaps of flesh in all directions. And Bela Lugosi dies hard. Because, you know, once you get past all of his defenses and all of his bullshit, you know, enough lightning bolts to the face, all it takes is a few little claw attacks to kill him the rest of the way. And the sphere of annihilation that was sitting in the middle of the arena, they grab up Bela Lugosi's corpse and, you know, they search it for valuables. And then they throw him into the sphere of annihilation, into non-existence. So Bela Lugosi is no more. And all the lights kind of go out, the ever burning torches and the shielding that keeps them from escaping into the arena. The audience is you know, blown away. They begin to panic and run for the exits. People get trampled. Oh my God, they're such monsters! They killed Bela Lugosi. The labyrinth is gonna be destroyed. And they run for the exits while they still can, and the world is shaking and groaning because the infinite space that is the labyrinth is slowly coming unraveled. And our heroes find one final door in front of themselves. It's on the side of the arena, but it leads outside. They can see grass, they can see a road, they can see trees, they can see birds. They can see, you know, a small rain cloud crawling across the sky, and Taurus looks at it and he's like, I haven't felt rain in 100 years, maybe more. I don't know how long I've been here. He's just taken aback by the idea of rain, and that's how long he's been in the labyrinth. And he goes over and he picks up Lilia's body. He's holding her by the backs of her knees and the back of her neck. And, Ming kind of comes over and goes, Taurus, we've got all this money and all these magic items. We can go to a cleric or somebody somewhere that knows resurrection magic. Her body is not that badly damaged. We can wrap it up and get her resurrected. And he goes, good. I'm glad you thought of that because I almost doomed us all. I am so sorry. I almost hit the reset button again, despite how far we've come, my friends. I am so sorry. And they approach, they grab Darius's body. They don't know Darius that well. He tried to rape Lilia, but they're not going to leave him there because what fate would be worse than to be crunched into the collapsing labyrinth's reality. So they grab Darius, and they have Lilia's body, and they approach this final archway, and there is a perched gargoyle on either side, and they know, based on everything they've seen so far, they're like, this can't be it. So Zealous steps forward, and he does the detect magic. Sure enough, sitting over that archway are a barrier of protection against evil and a barrier of protection against chaos. So, is anybody in this party gonna, if you are either of those things on the alignment chart, you can't leave. And they go, well, and Taurus looks over at Liner and goes, Liner, why don't you try it? And Liner's like, okay. He wanders forward. Liner wandered between the two gargoyles, and he wanders under the archway, and he kind of looks around and is like, okay. So he steps foot beyond the archway, only to be zapped by eye lasers from both gargoyles, take a couple of 100 points of damage, and puff into ash. And Liner goes, what? I wasn't chaotic or evil. And I go, you were chaotic. And he goes, no, I wasn't. And I go, yeah, you were offered the chance to leave the labyrinth and you left your friends behind. You've been hoarding and doing all these other things. You slipped from basically neutral good to chaotic good over this long period. You tried to abandon your party, and there were just various other things throughout the campaign that I didn't mention, that Liner was starting to slowly turn selfish because he was surrounded by all these evil people and they were a bad influence on him. So he his morals and his rules and his stuffs just applied less and less and less over time. So he may have been a good character, but he was not lawful in any way. So he slipped from grace and became chaotic. One of the barriers stopped him and the gargoyles killed him. And they go, that is such bullshit. Zealous, can you remove those barriers? And Zealous goes, yeah, sure. Dispel. And he removes the protection from evil barrier. And he goes, I don't have any other dispels. We'll have to wait a day. Will the labyrinth survive that? And Taurus goes, well, the arena is a staple location for people to enter, so it's probably a real location. I don't think it will collapse under the weight of the labyrinth anytime soon, if at all. So they make camp, they sleep for another night. Taurus falls asleep with Lilia's body, propped against him. It's like the most fitful sleep you've ever seen. And Zealous prepares a couple of more dispel spells, and he gets rid of the barrier against chaos. And then he zaps both the gargoyles to dispel them as well. So it is safe to leave now. And so they line up shoulder to shoulder, Liner, Taurus, Ming, and Zealous, carrying Lilia's body, or actually no, Liner would be ashes, so they gathered Liner's ashes up into like a little potion bottle. So it would have been Taurus, Ming, and Zealous standing there with Lilia's body, Darius's body, and Liner's ashes. And as one, they sort of like take the first step out to see if they die anymore. And no, they step outside and they stop for a moment because the breeze touches their hair and ruffles it. And Taurus takes a deep breath of fresh air. And they can hear, the rain-pregnant wind warning them with distant thunder of the mid to late fall sort of cooling weather. The ground kind of squishes under them, a little more natural and more forgiving than the stone that they've been walking on for weeks. And they kind of look around. I've forgotten the taste of bread. I've forgotten the sound of trees, and they are, Taurus especially is overwhelmed by the idea that they are outside now. That this is it. They turn and they look. The arena is still there. There's nothing attached to it. The labyrinth was like a side dimension or a pocket dimension or whatever you want to call it, an insecure other realm of existence that didn't exist anymore. Whoever was in there when it collapsed, they're dead. But they're dead for good, which may be for the better, because otherwise it just starts over and they start over again, and et cetera, et cetera. So the time loops are over. The infinite labyrinth is gone. Bela Lugosi is dead. Heidi is at rest. And everybody else's suffering is finally over. And what lies on the road ahead, it's hard to say. They promised that they would resurrect Lilia, and they are no doubt going to send Liner's ashes back to his church and say, hey, this is what happened, resurrect him if you wish. He's kind of a narcissist now, but, he was damaged while he was in the labyrinth. You might want to bring him back to life and teach him a bit more of Bahamut's ways. They probably left Darius dead just because they didn't know him and he tried to rape Lilia, so they probably buried him at the roadside. But what lies ahead for our heroes? Gosh, it's a brand new day. Liner was eventually brought back, somewhat humbled by what happened to him. He's sort of, like I said, he sort of became a selfish narcissist, especially after leaving his friends behind and changing his rules all about who he was going to help and who he wasn't going to help and why, rather than helping people because that was the teaching of Bahamut. So he would need to go back into his clerical training and kind of grind his nose into a few more books before he could call himself a cleric again, thinking that he could go into the labyrinth and be the first one to escape for fame and fortune. That's not really a cleric thing to do. So he has more tests and trials ahead of him from the Church of Bahamut. Taurus, he didn't really turn good, but, he learned teamwork, and he promised to resurrect Lilia, so maybe they could settle down somewhere. I don't know. He was an evil bastard. He was a rapist. He was a murderer, but, 100 years or however many hundreds of years that he served in the labyrinth was probably punishment and torture enough for what he had done. So this was a brand new beginning for him. Ming went home to free his master from the crystal that he had sealed him in and hidden elsewhere where nobody could ever find it. So he went and found him, brought him back, freed his master, told him everything, and was promptly exiled from his dojo, because of course he was, but emerged a little less evil and selfish than he was. Lilia was, again, of course, resurrected after a time, and that was probably a whole nother quest for a minotaur to wander into the proper church or to find the proper holy man to resurrect this woman that he loved, without getting, speared or shot with a crossbow on sight because he's a minotaur. But that's another story for another time that never really happened, so that was just their epilogue. Lilia stayed with Taurus, and they went on to have other adventures, so they had their own happily ever after. Zealous on the other hand, started out as evil and pretty much stayed evil. So he became a powerful necromancer and spread terror across the land. Hopefully someday somebody will stop him, but his finger of death and his phantasmal killer just went down in legend. So that was the end of the Labyrinth campaign. Half of them escaped, half of them died, and it really wasn't a happily ever after, but more of a ride off into the sunset sort of thing. So I hope you enjoyed that story, and I will see you on the next D&D Stories. Keep gaming. Hey guys, thanks for watching. I really love telling D&D stories, and I also really love eating food. So if you'd like to toss a couple of gold pieces into this humble bard's hat, be sure to check out my Patreon. If you enjoyed this story, be sure to hit the like button as well. And if you'd like access to maps, character art, and channel updates too, check out the D&D Stories Facebook. Keep gaming!